My name is Mari, and I spent over $100 million on Facebook ads while working with multiple 8 and 9-figure brands like Beauty or West. Today, I'll be answering your question. So let's start. First question. Do you use Advantage Plus placement or manual placement? If manual, which one do you prefer the most? In 95% of the cases, I'm using auto placement, or how Facebook renamed it to Advantage Plus placement. Facebook is pretty good at allocating budget to the right placement, and different placement can assist with the conversion, so I always stick with Advantage Plus placement. CBO or ABO? That's probably the most frequent question. I'm a big fan of ABO because it allows me to set a dedicated budget for each concept, which I really like, especially in testing. Also, in a CBO, Facebook can often push budget to the ad set that has the largest audience or that has the highest click rate, which is not necessarily connected with the performance. And I want my budget to always be tied to the performance. Question number 3. Recently, we moved our main campaigns to Advantage Plus. We have since tripled the budget, but still rather low and not spending near 6 figures a month that we have in the past. Is there a point we should move to broad? Advantage Plus, in theory, it is broad, but it is partially doing the retargeting. That's why I always have a regular campaign alongside with Advantage Shopping Plus. In my regular campaign, I'm using broad audience, which actually allows me to do more prospecting. Question number 4. What's your strategy for expanding to new countries with the different languages on Meta? Do you just translate and test your winners and go from there? Anything non-obvious to consider? Initially, I would just take existing winners on English and test them in different countries, because in most of those countries people understand English, and that's your easiest take to test the ads. Once you see attraction in a specific country, then it makes sense to do translations both on the ad side and on the landing pages. Which placement for video in terms of reels and feeds gives the best results in terms of CPA regardless of CPM? To be honest, this question doesn't really make much sense. It depends on the client, on the product, on the target audience, where that target audience is spending most of their time. So for example, for younger audience, we know this reels performs better. For boomers, we know this feed always performs better, especially on Facebook. Does the quality of the video really influence the performance of creative? HD or not HD? For example, not necessarily, but obviously if your video is very bad quality, it could impact your prospects negatively. So you don't have to film a video in 4K, but obviously better quality, the better would user anticipate the video. Are hook rate and hold rate very important metrics for you? Do they really impact CPM and ads ability to convert? No, they do not impact CPM. I call them soft metrics, and I use them to evaluate my winning or losing ads and to actually understand why they were winners or how can I improve them. I'm never making decisions based solely on soft metrics, and yet they don't have impact on the CPM. What's your method for producing high performance creative as quickly as possible on an advertising ad account? This is a simple answer. Hiring either an internal creative strategist that can support you as a media buyer, or hiring a performance creative agency. Do you think it's useful to create campaigns for different cold audiences, let's say one for broad, one for Netflix audience, for example? Or is it better to do a single broad campaign for cold acquisition? I personally mostly use broad, but often test my winning ads with some additional audience. This could get me some additional revenue because I know I already have a winning ad, but I often test my winning ads with some additional audiences. This could get me some additional revenue, but it's important to mention here that it makes sense to test audience only after you have a winning ads. What are the best practices for running Advantage Shopping Plus campaign? I did a full video about Advantage Shopping Plus here with all of the details in terms of the setup, how to set up the ads, how to optimize them, what attribution settings to use, so make sure to check that video. What metric do you expect to see in order to know if you can scale a creative very strong? The lower the CPM, the greater the potential for scale. Yes, CPO or ROAS is my main indicator of success of the ad. What format do you recommend for creative video creation in terms of dimensions, for example? And which format do you mainly publish your creative? Do you create several ads, one for each format? And do you create a specific ad for Reels placement? I usually create a vertical creative, which is 9x16 with the safe zones, meaning the text is not too high or too low. That way, video looks perfectly on story and Reels, and it still looks good when Facebook drops it to 4x5 when it's shown on the video due to the safe zones. Do you create one ad set per audience? For example, do you create 2 ad sets, one for cold and one for retargeting? I do not. In most cases, I care only about prospecting because Facebook is doing retargeting by default in my Advantage Shopping Plus campaign. Which metrics are less important than CPA, which gives less binary information than CPA? For example, profitable or unprofitable, and which allow you to improve your creative point by point. Which do you think are the most important ones to focus on? There are a couple of metrics. Number one, cost per add to cart. It can serve as a good early indicator if you will get a good CPA, especially if you're selling more expensive product and you cannot allow yourself to spend 2 times CPA or 2 times AOE. Besides that, when evaluating creatives, I check thumb stop ratio and hold rate. They're a good indicator whether your creative is getting the attention and whether your creative is holding the attention of the user through the video. What actions do you usually take on your creatives to improve them and turn them from unprofitable to profitable? How can you be sure that the creative is unprofitable and that even if you improve it, it will remain unprofitable so you don't have to spend time on it? If I know the answer to this question, I'll probably be the richest man alive. You can never be sure that you'll be able to get a profitable creative. That's why creative testing is actually important, but also learning from your test will get you into a position that you're doubling down on what's working and you're not doing the concept that failed. That way you will improve your hit rate of the tested creatives and you'll actually be able to spend more money on your winners and actually get better results. As mentioned in the previous question, I usually analyze thumb stop ratio and hold rate, obviously besides the CPA or ROAS. For retargeting, for example, product page visits in the last 30 days, is it better to use Klaviyo 30-day visitor audience or Facebook 30-day visitor audience? I never personally use Klaviyo 30-day visitors, I just use Facebook website visitor audience. When you want to exclude buyers to really only have new customers, in your opinion, is it necessary to exclude buyers from 180 days with the Klaviyo email list, or is it preferable to exclude them for 360 days or as long as possible? I use the tightest possible exclusions. Those are 180-day purchase pixel audience because 180 days maximum, and a sync list of all buyers from Klaviyo because that list is updating automatically. So I don't have to upload my customer list every now and then. What budget level do you implement most of the time? For example, you start with 50 euros, then go up to 100 and then 200 because you know there's a good chance the creative will be just as profitable at 200 if it were at 100, for example. Definitely depends on the overall budget on the ad account, number of the tests per week, as well as the AOV of the product. But yeah, usually 100 or 200 are most frequent starting budgets for me. Do you create dedicated retargeting campaign for former buyers with a dedicated ad set? Unless my clients want to target existing buyers, I do not create a campaign for those users because my clients mostly care about acquiring new customers because they know they can sell to the existing customers via an email for way cheaper price. Do you pay attention and track accounts frequency? How are you evaluating this metric on creative and ad accounts level? Do you track overlap between campaigns? I do track it, but I don't give it much attention or make decisions based on frequency. I just don't like it being above 3 or 4 on a 7-day period. Obviously, if I see it way higher, then I would not scale the performing ad set because probably it's hitting the retargeting or existing buyer segment. Could you give us a quick rundown on how you would go about scaling a meta ad account with no existing data for $200 to $300 item? Additionally, how and when would you determine if meta is not suitable channel for the product? To be honest, you cannot scale unless you have a winning creative. There's no structure that could promise you scaling no matter what's the price point of the product if you don't have an ad that's converting. I assume this expensive product requires a bit more education and product demonstration, so I would definitely use either educational ads or landing pages like listicles and advertorials that would actually provide more information about the product, so person who's buying is more inclined to buy because it already has a lot of information. Do you ever reactivate an old campaign which was successful and see good results, or rather set up a new campaign? Very rarely, only when it's some old promotion that's still applicable after a few months or year, but on the other hand, it makes more sense to take the post IDs of the winning ads and run them into new ad set or a new campaign. Are advertorials more powerful than a product page for you? Are CPAs better in general for advertorials? This depends on the product the client is selling. There's no rule here. It depends on the product that the client is selling, but if you can, you should test both. Well, I often found out that advertorials are working good for products that are problem solving and that they require a bit more education. If your goal is to hit a certain amount of revenue in a month, how do you go about it? For example, to hit 20K in a month with the goal ROAS of 2, you'll need to spend $333 every day. If you're a $100 ad spend, how would you plan it out? To be honest, my clients rarely have revenue targets. They usually have ROAS targets. They say, if you can hit X ROAS, scale as much as you can. In my opinion, that's the proper way to do business because we don't want to chase for growth and for revenue if we cannot be profitable. This way, we are growing only if we are hitting the target. That's it, guys. Let me know in the comments what do you think of this format. Should we do it again? If you're an ecom brand spending at least 50K on Facebook ads and you want to implement the knowledge from this session and this video into your ad account to actually scale your brand, book a call below.